Today, I'm going to talk about 5 tasty snacks that fight cancer can help you beat disease. And if you're like me and you've been touched by cancer in your life, somehow, whether it's a friend, a relative, colleague, and maybe yourself, then you're going to want to actually watch this video to the very end. Okay? Because I want to give you some practical tips on each of these foods and how they can actually help you lower your risk of cancer. Ready? Let's dive in. The first food that I want to talk about that can lower your risk of cancer are walnuts. That's right, walnuts, tree nut. Now, I personally love walnuts that come in halves, right? If you're already out of the shell, and each of the half looks like a wing. That's how you should always think about walnuts. I'm going to tell you what's in a walnut, why it's useful for cancer fighting. And then if you like to eat walnuts, I'm going to tell you how I actually use them for my own food. But let's first talk about cancer, all right? I'm a cancer researcher. I'm a physician. I have cancer patients. I've diagnosed cancer in many people over my career. So I want to actually tell you a little bit about the biology of cancer. And because if you understand what we now know about cancer, it'll give you a clue on how we can actually use food to fight it. All right. Now, cancer is a dreaded disease, and it deserves the fear that it actually evokes, because it's one of those conditions that tends to sneak up on us, and then suddenly you've got a diagnosis. Then you undergo this sort of pipe of treatment that involves chemotherapy. No wonder it's actually dreaded. Okay, but things are actually changing quite dramatically, because we're now realizing that cancer is a condition that we probably form all the time in our bodies, and we just don't even know it. And you see, because a tumor is made out of cancer cells, and cancer cells are basically regular cells that are undergone a mutation. All right, so a normal cell undergoes a mutation, and now it's an abnormal cell. And the issue is this: our body is made out of trillions of cells, trillions, about 40 trillions. And all these cells have to be copy and pasted, duplicated perfectly all the time. And that's basically why we're still here today compared to yesterday, and why we're still going to be around tomorrow compared to today. Our cells are copied over and over and over. That's part of being alive, all right? And copying cells is really, really complicated. Good thing our body knows how to do that pretty well, but it's not perfect. Our body doesn't actually copy all of our cells exactly perfectly. Let me talk to you about copying and perfection, right? So imagine I were to give you a sentence and ask you to type it on a word processor or laptop 10 times, all right? You'll probably do all 10 copies of my sentence perfectly, all right? That's what I would expect. Now, if I were to ask you to copy it 100 times, all right, you're going to be making some mistakes. I bet you make 1 or 2 mistakes in a sentence, all right? Now imagine I would ask you to copy it 40 trillion times, because that's how many times our body has to copy our cells. We got 40 trillion cells. We got to copy 40 trillion cells. And now, for sure, whether it's you or your body trying to make that many copies, mistakes are going to be made. And every mistake when you make a copy of a cell turns out to be a mutation. All right. Now, do you know how many mutations or how many mistakes your body makes every single day out of 40 trillion copy and pastes? Take a guess. What do you think? The answer actually is 10,000 mistakes are made every day. 10,000. It sounds like a lot, but actually it's very few compared to 40 trillion. The body's pretty good, actually. But those 10,000 mistakes that are made, each one of those mistakes can become a microscopic cancer, because cancers begin as mutations, abnormal cells. And when those abnormal cells kind of grow, they become microscopic cancers. Now, why do I call them microscopic cancers? And what does that mean? Microscopic compared to what? Well, I call it microscopic cancer compared to a clinical cancer. A clinical cancer is what a mammogram detects when you actually see an abnormal part of the picture of the mammogram, or maybe a woman feels a lump in her breast. A clinical cancer is actually when you've got bleeding in the toilet bowl and it's a colon cancer that's bleeding, or maybe you see a colon cancer in a colonoscopy. Clinical cancer is actually when you do a scan of your body and you've got a tumor in your liver, all right? But that's a clinical cancer. A microscopic cancer is one of these tiny little, tiny tumor, all right, made out of abnormal mutated cells that is so small, it's just a few millimeters in diameter, kind of about the size of the tip of a ballpoint pen, all right? And a tumor that size is basically can form all the time, like a pimple on your back, right? So if you got a pimple on your back, you might not know it. If you had a pimple on your face, you probably would see it, it would bug you, probably go away, or you might decide to treat it. But we form pimples on our backs all the time. We don't look at our back, so we don't know it's there. And our body will kind of resolve the pimple. It'll kind of go away by itself. And that's actually what happens to these microscopic cancers that are present and growing all the time in our bodies. All right. Now, if they're growing in our bodies, these microscopic cancers, because of copy-paste errors that occur every single day, 10,000 errors that are every day. Now, not everyone's going to turn into a microscopic cancer, but some of them will. What actually happens? Well, they sit there and they try to grow. They can only grow to 2 to 3 millimeters in diameter. That's about the size of the tip of a ballpoint pen. Then they are frozen and can't get bigger. You know why? Because they don't have a blood supply. No blood vessels are feeding a cancer like that. The reason that no blood vessels are feeding cancer like that is because our body has a natural defense system. It's called the angiogenesis defense system that helps our healthy tissues grow blood vessels and get a circulation and keeps disease tissues like that microscopic tumor from developing a blood supply. All right, so that's one of our health defenses. I write about it in my book, Eat to Beat Disease. I teach about this health defense system and the foods that can activate it in the online course I teach called the Eat to Beat Disease course that I give, every couple of months. But here's the key thing. Your body does a good job to hold that microscopic tumor in check. And then another one of your defense systems, your immune system, will have immune cells that wing by. They're conducting surveillance all the time. These immune cells are in our bodies. And they wing by that microscopic cancer. They see it. It's kind of like seeing a drug dealer on the corner of a peaceful neighborhood. Shouldn't be there, right? So what does the cop do? The police will actually interrogate the weird-looking guy, the suspicious-looking guy. And if they think they're suspicious enough, you're going to throw them in the back of the paddy wagon and take them away, cleaning up the neighborhood. And that's exactly what your immune system does. Okay, so the body is actually preventing blood vessels from growing to feed the cancer, so it's stuck at 1 millimeter. Now your surveillance system, the immune system, wings by, spots this abnormal microscopic cancer, says, hey, wait a minute, let's go check this out. Find out that it's a microscopic cancer, and then what they do is they actually then destroy the cancer, take it away, destroy it. Okay, and that's why, despite the 10,000 mistakes that our body makes in copying and pasting our DNA every single day, that's why we don't develop cancer more often. Now, when somebody develops cancer, the first question that they're going to ask is, hey, doc, why did I get the cancer? And, sometimes there's an answer: smoking, family history, all kinds of things that are high risk factors for cancer. But actually, the more important question from my perspective is, how come we don't get cancer more often? And that's because of our body's health defense systems that keep the cancer at bay. And once you realize that the body actually has its own way of battling cancer and keeping it at bay, suddenly it actually opens the idea that maybe there's another way that we can actually use diet and lifestyle to amp up, to shore up our body's natural health defenses against cancer. All right. Now, notice I didn't talk about chemotherapy at all. That's not even part of the equation here. Okay, now, this whole issue about microscopic cancers, how do we know they exist? Well, I'm all about evidence, so I'll tell you that this has been established in autopsy studies of people who died of not cancer, right? So they might have died in automobile accidents or trauma, some other cause. And some people undergo an autopsy, and what the pathologists who conduct these autopsies do is they go check every single tissue, including breast and prostate and thyroid. And this is where the discoveries were made, because autopsy studies of women who didn't die of cancer but other causes, these autopsy of women have shown that 40% of women between the ages of 40s and 50, all right, already have microscopic cancers in their breast. Most of these women will never be bothered by breast cancer, those tiny little cancers, because they're just microscopic and their immune systems will take care of it. But some of them will go on to develop cancer, but that's a key thing. 40% of women in their 40s who have no cancer, no evidence of cancer, that's no clinical cancer, they already have these microscopic cancers. And that's partly how we know that what I just told you earlier about the copy, paste, and mistakes, that's how we know that occurs, these microscopic cancers. My mentor, Dr. Judah Fulpin, once wrote an editorial about this called Cancer Without Disease. Sounds kind of weird, right? Sounds like a contradiction in terms, but nope. This is actually how it is. We have cancer without disease. Now, here's another study. Autopsy studies of men in their 50s have shown that 50% of these men have microscopic cancers in their prostate, but most of them aren't going to develop clinical prostate cancer. Why? Because even though those microscopic cancers are there, immune system will actually wing by, spot them, and take them out, right? So basically your body prevents blood vessels from growing, keeps them small. By the way, I got to tell you, research I've done in the lab, and that lab has actually shown that if you actually take a tumor and you prevent blood vessels from ever getting to it, can't grow more than 2 or 3 millimeters in diameter. Again, that's about the size of the tip of a ballpoint pen, super tiny. But once you allow blood vessels to touch that cancer, to feed it, bring it oxygen and bring it nutrients, guess what? In the lab, we've shown that that's enough to grow that tumor 16,000 times in just 2 weeks. All right. So angiogenesis, tumor angiogenesis, abnormal blood vessels growing towards the blood vessels. Angio is blood vessels, genesis, how they grow. Our body's health defense controls all of our healthy blood vessels, but occasionally a cancer will be able to hijack that system and grow blood vessels. It'll grow 16,000 times in 2 weeks, all right? That's why angiogenesis is the trigger for tumor growth. But as long as your body can actually keep it small, cut off the blood supply, then our immune system wings by and takes them out. And that's why the 40% of women in their 40s or the 50% of men in their 50s, that's why their own health defenses protects them against those microscopic cancers in their breast and their prostate from ever growing up, all right? And there's another study, it's an autopsy study, of people 70 years and older. And what that study showed is that 100% of people above the age of 70 have microscopic cancers in their thyroid gland. Now, the thyroid gland is kind of just in your neck, a little below, just above sort of like the sternum, all right? It's a endocrine gland. It releases thyroid hormone. But as you get older, thyroid cancer is really, really common. But actually, it won't become a clinical cancer, won't be a problem. So all these things were discovered accidentally during autopsy studies. And it just shows how common cancer actually is in the body. Cancer without disease. Our body having health defenses that actually knock out and take away these cancers and keep them from ever growing and becoming a problem. And that's why we're actually healthy, right? So most people don't develop clinical cancers, but because of these health defenses. But if any of these health defenses fail, all right, then it gives cancer an edge, a chance to actually overcome the blood vessel system and grow their own blood vessels, overcome the immune system, escape the immune system. And if you actually have inflammation around, inflammation is kind of like pouring gasoline onto the embers of a fire. It's going to cause it to rear right up and start to actually become very ferocious and fearsome, right?
Hey there. I have a valuable resource that you won't want to miss. It's all about the 5 signs that your legs and your feet may be warning you about poor health. Your legs and feet can give you important clues about your overall health, especially when it comes to your circulation. If you want to learn more about these warning signs and how to take action, click on the link below the video to access this essential information. Or you can access the guide by scanning the QR code on the screen right now. Now, let's get back to the video.
So, What do we want to do when it comes to food for cancer prevention? Well, what we want to do is to shore up, ramp up, okay, activate our body's health defenses. So what's already pretty good, let's make it better. Let's raise the shields, all right? Every little bit of edge that we can get and our health defenses helps to beat back cancer. And if you actually are somebody who's already struggling with cancer, now you really need your health defenses because they are pushing back against the disease every single moment of your life, all right? So one of the things that you want to do is to lower inflammation. Remember I told you inflammation is like gasoline that you put on the embers of a fire, boo, whoosh, it's going to actually go way up. So you got to lower inflammation, right? So that's a super, super important thing. And you also want to raise your immune system so you've got better surveillance. More immune cells can see that cancer and start to take them out. And by the way, here's another thing you want to do. Remember I told you that the copy-paste problem in our body, well, that's actually what leads to the formation of these microscopic cancers due to mutations, remember? And mutations are errors of our DNA. That's a genetic mutation. And so our body has its own ways to prevent mutations in our DNA or to fix the mutations that already occurred. That's our DNA health defense. And again, I write all about that, a whole chapter in my book, Eat to Beat Disease, all right? Preventing cancers from being fed by blood vessels, starving a tumor by cutting off its blood supply. And by the way, there's another thing. If you can actually wipe out cancer stem cells, let me explain that to you. Our body's made out of different organs, and our organs are sort of differentiated, meaning fully formed cells, right? Your liver is fully formed, your heart is fully formed, but your body has the ability to renew and replenish the cells using stem cells. And you've probably heard of stem cells through regenerative medicine, but this is actually real. So stem cells can kind of rebuild tissues. Now, normal healthy organs have stem cells, right? And our stem cells, our healthy stem cells can rebuild those. But cancer is very, very sneaky. So tumors can have their own cancer stem cells. And these cancer stem cells help to regenerate the cancer if you actually cut it out or treat it, all right? And that's when you hear people saying, oh, they had cancer come back. Well, it's the stem cells that actually help them regrow and establish themselves. That's what recurrence of cancer is all about, all right? So all those things that I told you want to do, you want to kill cancer stem cells, you want to cut off the blood supply feeding a cancer, you want to help your body repair the DNA, you want to lower the inflammation, and you want to boost the immune system. All right, guess what food can actually help to do all those things? You guessed it, walnuts, all right? Walnuts can actually help amp up your body's health defenses so that you can actually protect yourself against cancer, all right? So it lowers the risk. Walnut fits the bill as a cancer defense system. Now, what's in a walnut? So walnuts are a source of plant-based omega-3 fatty acids. These are healthy fats. And guess what healthy fats do? Well, one thing they do is they improve the power of your immune cells. These cells are called T cells. All right, they're just part of our immune system. We need those T cells to wipe out cancer. And eating walnuts gives our T cells a real boost, all right? Kind of arms them up big time. Now, walnuts also contain a natural bioactive, a polyphenol, called elagitannins, all right? It's not just one molecule, it's a group of molecules. Elagitannins, all right? And these compounds, when we eat a walnut, these compounds get into our bloodstream, and they can help cut off the blood supply. But these elagitannins also partly tumble down our gut, right into our colon, where our gut bacteria actually is. And where our healthy gut bacteria lives, all right, the gut bacteria convert the elagitannins in walnuts into something called urolithin, urolithins, urolithins, all right? And guess what? Those urolithins get back into our bloodstream. They've got strong anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects. Protects your DNA by antioxidant and prevents cancer from flaring up by lowering inflammation, all right? And that's just from the omega-3 and the elagitannins. Now, how do we know this works? Well, it's been studied in human research, and studies conducted by researchers at Marshall University looked at people who ate walnuts, and they looked at the risk of breast cancer. All right. So here's what they did. These are women they enrolled into the study who are already getting a biopsy because there's a suspicion they've got breast cancer, right? Maybe it's abnormal mammogram, maybe it's a lump that they felt. And so these are women who were already getting a biopsy. Now, one group actually they divided the group into two. One group actually got 2 ounces of walnuts a day for 2 weeks, all right, leading up to their biopsy. And the other group didn't get any walnuts, all right? So it's walnuts versus no walnuts. And what happens when the researchers looked at the biopsies, so don't forget, they got the walnuts a couple of weeks before the biopsy. And when the researchers looked at the breast tissue from the people who were eating walnuts, the walnut eaters, they did find the cancer, but they found gene expression, all right, related to tumor growth. And the walnut eaters had more DNA, protective genes, that turned down cancer cell growth in their breast biopsy, all right? And the researchers found that the walnut eaters had genes for cancer cell growth, the genes that would actually spark the cancer cell to grow. They were turned down, all right, well, by eating walnuts. So eating walnuts turned down the genes that drive cancer cell growth. And at the same time, the same researchers found that eating walnuts in those people protected against cancer by turning on anti-cancer genes that actually are designed to actually combat cancer. So shields up, beating back cancer genes are on, and the genes for fueling cancer growth go down. Everything in the right direction, all right? Now, there was another study that looked at 76,000 women. This was called the Nurses' Health Study. And this study actually looked at women who were consuming walnuts regularly. And they found that women who regularly ate walnuts, like just part of their routine diet, they had a 19% lower risk of developing breast cancer, all right, compared to women who rarely or never ate walnuts, all right. Now, the researchers thought about, the protective effect of walnuts, they said probably due to the high level of omega-3s, all right. But I can tell you, based on what my research shows, that it's not just the omega-3s, it's the dietary fiber. It is the anti-angiogenic effects of the ellagiotannins. It is the anti-inflammatory effects of the omega-3s. Everything works together to lower risk. And that's where, the concepts which are found true in the lab can apply to people in large clinical studies and observational studies as well. Just taking a look at, does it work in people? And it seems like it does. One more thing about walnuts, guess what? Walnuts actually have a substance that can kill cancer stem cells. Those are those pesky cells I told you about that help the cancer come back, the baby cancer cells. Well, eating walnuts actually has a substance that kills the cancer stem cells so the cancer won't come back. This has been studied in a lab as well as in people with colorectal cancer, all right? Now, I'm telling you, there was like a study of 700 people with colon cancer, stage 3 colon cancer. They were getting into regular treatments, and it showed that those people who actually were eating regularly a fistful of walnuts, tree nuts like walnuts a couple of times a week, they had like a 50% lower risk of dying from their colon cancer. So this isn't, walnuts being the chemo. It's actually adding walnuts to boost the health defenses while you're getting regular treatment, all right? And this is a study done with all the major medical centers around the country, like Duke and Harvard and MD Anderson, all these like really, really prestigious medical centers looked at this event, and they actually published it and presented it at the American Society for Clinical Oncology. So this was actually in front of a mainstream audience of cancer researchers as well, all right? So walnuts, good. Now, how do I like to eat walnuts? There's a lot of different ways, and I thought I would share some of them with you. So first of all, for any kind of tree nut, but also walnuts, I like to roast them lightly in order to bring out their flavor, right? So the way to do it is you get bulk walnuts. Now, I specifically look for ones that are just like the wings are like walnut halves, or the wings, the half wings. I don't like them when they're kind of like are pre-crushed up already. I'll do the crushing, thank you very much. All right, so I get the walnuts that are, as intact as possible. You stick them on a cast iron pan. You don't need any oil at all. You just put the cast iron pan on top of the range. All right, if you've got gas, like turn it on low. All right, you want to heat the pan. You're not cooking the walnuts. You're getting the pan hot, and you're moving. You're going to be holding the handle of the pot, move it back and forth and back and forth. All right, and now the walnuts are shaking around. You're going to toast up the walnuts that way. You can start smelling their flavor after a couple of minutes, and stop before they burn. So as soon as you kind of get that nice fragrance, and they're kind of crisped up, all right. I literally just like turn off the flame, take them off the flame, pour them off onto a plate, let them cool down, all right? And once you're cool, you can crush them up, and now you've got these crushed up toasted walnuts. I love that. Sprinkle it over your yogurt or sprinkle some in your oatmeal. You're taking yogurt, which is a probiotic food, or oatmeal, which actually has got huge amounts of dietary fiber and useful bioactives for gut microbiome, all right, to lower inflammation and speed up healing. Now you can sprinkle some walnuts on top of it, and now you've actually added a cancer preventative substance on top of something that's already good for gut health and good for heart health, and now you've got good for cancer health as well. Now, by the way, if you want to actually aim towards longevity, this is a great way to do it because, for example, yogurt has been shown to improve longevity, and now you can actually sprinkle a little bit of anti-cancer or cancer-fighting food right on top of that. Works well together from a taste and flavor perspective. I would probably cut up a little bit of fruit on top of that just to give the walnuts and fruits some flavor. Now, if you say, what would be a good fruit with walnuts? I always like fresh fruit, especially whenever it's in season. But apples and walnuts work together. I kind of think of walnuts as in the fall, so it doesn't have to be fresh. You could take dried cranberries, dried blueberries, and walnuts. Those are all good combinations that you can actually put together, right? And oatmeal itself, by the way, can reduce cancer risk because oatmeal contains substances that are naturally anti-inflammatory. Put out that fire, all right? Okay, another way that I actually like to use walnuts is in a pesto. Now, you probably have had pesto before if you like Italian food, right? Like the real original pesto is super simple. It is extra virgin olive oil, it's garlic, it's basil leaves, and it's pine nuts. And you literally go into a mortar and pestle and grind that into a paste. All right, mix it all together. It smells great. And then if you cook some pasta, I like to use Trophy, which is Trofie, which is the original type of shape of pasta where pesto was developed in Liguria. You take a dollop of that pesto you just made and throw it onto the Trophy, mix it around. Amazing. It's full of healthy ingredients. The extra virgin olive oil, the basil, the pine nuts, the garlic, all good for you, right? But instead of adding pine nuts, all right, which I also love pine nuts, try adding crushed walnuts, crushed toasted walnuts instead. Now you've got a walnut pesto. And by the way, there are different kinds of walnut pestos out there if you want to look around for them. But you can make your own, all right? And that's a great way, delicious way to be able to get walnuts into your diet as a way that you might not naturally think of, right? So, and by the way, if you're going to actually make a pasta with walnut pesto, I suggest a organic whole wheat pasta, all right? It's a little brown, a little nuttier, a little bit more nutritious as well, and it's got those bioactives from the whole grain, better dietary fiber. Now you add what we just talked about, walnut pesto on top of that. Man, you've got basically a vegetarian dish, all right, that lights up all your body's health defenses. You want to put some ground cheese, like Parmesan Reggiano cheese, Gran Padano, like you actually grind it up in there. That's another component of a traditional pesto. You can do that too if you eat dairy. Dairy's not bad in a small amount. That's a way of actually really lighting it up as well. All right. Now, crushed walnuts, I talked about the yogurt. I talked about the pasta. You can sprinkle them on the salad as well. All right. That's super, super easy. So one nut, lots of different benefits through lots of different mechanisms, many ways to enjoy it. All right. Ready for my second food? That was just my first food. Ready for my second food? It is dried fruit. All right. Now, what do I mean by dried fruit? Well, let's talk about, it's a lot of fruits that you can dry, right? Cranberries, blueberries, cherries, you've probably seen those. What about figs? Now, figs in the summer are nice and green or nice and black and plump and juicy, all right? but you can dried figs, right? And apricots. Apricots, lovely stone fruit in the summer. I love stone fruit. You know, I love a fresh apricot, fresh ripe apricot. Amazing. All right. But you can also eat a dried apricot. You've probably seen those. They're kind of like yay big, like big as a kind of like a big coin, like a silver dollar. They're orangish or orange brownish, and they don't have a pit in them. And so figs and apricots, they are really, really great. Now, dried fruit, probably not the first thing you think of when it comes to cancer fighting foods, but I'm going to tell you why I'm putting them in this video, including them. And that is that apricots and figs, like all fruits, have naturally occurring bioactives. These are natural chemicals that are anti-inflammatory. And lowering inflammation is a very, very good, scientifically informed way of lowering your cancer risk. All right. Okay, so is not smoking and not drinking too much and getting enough sleep and exercising. But I'm just telling you that eating foods with anti-inflammatory properties is really powerful in terms of lowering your cancer risk. All right. And by the way, if you already have cancer in your body, eating anti-inflammatory foods also is actually going to be beneficial because it helps your body by lowering the gasoline that you would otherwise pour onto the embers of the fire. You don't want that fire to rear out. You don't want that cancer to kind of start to grow like crazy. So to calm it down, lower inflammation. Okay. So the bioactives are anti-inflammatory, but for example, in apricots and figs, they also have a lot of dietary fiber, right? Now, dietary fiber feeds your gut microbiome. These are the 39 trillion bacteria that live in your gut, healthy bacteria. And when you feed these healthy gut bacteria fiber, dietary fiber, one of the things they do is they actually begin releasing substances called short chain fatty acids, all right, or SCFAs, SCFA, short chain fatty acids. And these short chain fatty acids get into your bloodstream. And guess what they are? They are powerfully anti-inflammatory. SCFAs, anti-inflammatory. Dried fruit with a lot of dietary fiber, like figs or apricot, will actually help your gut bacteria produce these short chain fatty acids, lowering inflammation. All right. So both the bioactives in dried fruits, as well as the dietary fiber that's found in them, will actually help you lower cancer risk by lowering inflammation. All right. Now, why am I talking about dried fruit as opposed to fresh fruit? Because I love fresh fruit, and I'm saying that you should definitely eat fresh fruit when they're in season. However, it's a lot easier to eat a handful of dried fruit than it is, multiple whole fruits, right? So think about this. If I told you dried apricots are good, and you say like, well, how many should I eat? And I told you, well, I don't know, eat 4 or 5 dried apricots. Boom, boom, boom. They're really easy to eat, 3 to 4 or 5 dried apricots. But if I wanted you to get that amount of dietary fiber and bioactives, and I told you to eat the whole round apricot fruit, you're going to be eating 4 to 5 apricots. That's work. All right. That's considerably more. All right. So that's why dried fruit's an easy way to kind of get what you need without actually making it a big mess. And because it's not juicy, all right, you can take it around in a bag and eat it as a snack. Perfect snack, or you have a busy day, or you're traveling. So that's one of my little travel tips for you, is that if you're going to get like dried foods that you want to actually have cancer fighting ability, the walnuts we talked about, dried figs, dried apricots, make your own trail mix. That's what I'm telling you. Don't get the pre-made stuff that's got, M&Ms and all kinds of other candy and then sugar sweetened. Make your own, all right? And make it suit your taste, because this is all about you. It's personalizing nutrition, personalizing health. Now, we're talking about dried fruit, talking about apricot, for example. This is actually where you might try to buy organic. Now, what am I talking about that? Because in dried fruit, the skin is dried right onto the fruit, shrunk way down. Think about a dried apricot, right? It's only about this big. It's about like yay thick. And it's the entire apricot kind of shriveled up. You're never going to be able to wash any pesticides off that. That I guarantee you. Okay. And in fact, studies have been done using the types of pesticides that we spray onto our food crop. And it was found that even no matter how hard you wash them, you're not going to be able to get rid of all the pesticides because some of these commercial pesticides soak right into the skin, about 20% into the skin. Now they're stuck there and you're going to be eating them, right? Which you don't want to do, especially if you're trying to lower cancer risk, right? That makes sense? So organically grown foods actually are just safer. They don't actually have those synthetic chemicals sprayed into it, onto the skin, all right? Now, if you're going to buy fruit, whether it's dried fruit or not, I would tell you if it's dried fruit, just make sure that the kind you're getting doesn't have added sugar to it, right? So manufacturers are doing anything they can to make their product a little bit more appealing to you. So sometimes they actually add sugar to it. Sure, it's going to taste sweeter, right? Who doesn't like that? But that's not what you want for lowering your cancer risk. Added sugar, all right, can overwhelm your metabolism and help you grow excess body fat. And guess what? That excess body fat, especially visceral fat that's found in a tube of your body, that visceral fat actually can be inflammatory. And remember, that's exactly what we're trying to do, is to fight inflammation, not to accidentally eat something that's going to grow it. So always check the label of your dried fruit to make sure that there's no added sugar and no added chemical colors, artificial dyes, artificial flavoring, artificial seasoning, artificial preservatives. I mean, don't believe me. Manufacturers want their product to look pretty, so they'll actually put all kinds of chemicals in there to kind of give it that sex appeal in the package. All right. So just remember that. Just get them plain. Again, we're adding this up like the trail mix, which is how I like to use the walnuts, the dried fruits. Okay. Great ways trail mix. Add it to your oatmeal. Cut them up. You get a little bit of sweetness to it. You get a heck of a lot of fiber for gut health. Oh, by the way, good gut health is good brain health, right? Now you probably heard about this, the gut-brain axis. All that means is that if you actually feed your gut really well, your gut bacteria, not only do they lower inflammation, not only do they lower your cholesterol levels, not only do they help your body become more insulin sensitive, which is just being more efficient with your metabolism. Good, healthy gut bacteria text messages your brain and signals your brain to release social hormones. Now, these are the hormones that you actually want because they make you feel better. It's the kind of feel-good hormone that your brain releases when you see a friend you haven't seen in a long time and you go up there, give them a hug, all right? That really good feeling, that's your brain releasing a social hormone called oxytocin. Guess what? Your gut bacteria, when it's healthy, can actually signal your brain to release those social hormones. So it's really good for you, all right? That's why I like to make my own trail mix with all the things I've been talking about today. All right, I'm going to give you another one. So the third food I'm going to give you is cocoa nibs. You ever see cocoa nibs? If you don't pay attention to them, you might just walk right by them. But cocoa nibs are found where they sell nuts, tree nuts, or they're found where they sell candy sometimes, or dried products in the middle aisle. Cocoa nibs are just tiny small bits of crushed, dried, and fermented cacao seeds. All right. So the heck is that? A cacao seed. Well, look, this is the plant that is used to make chocolate, right? Who doesn't like chocolate? So let me explain to you. So in tropical areas, especially volcanic areas, these cocoa trees grow, all right? And these cacao trees grow. And these cacao trees actually, they develop seeds that you can find them. All right, and the seeds are, seed pods are kind of like a football. They're brown, or they can be bright yellow. And when you take one, and I've done this myself, and it's pretty heavy. And when you actually shake it, you can feel the seeds kind of like moving around inside. Cut open that seed pod, open it up, and you'll see other seeds in there. All right, this thing is about yay big. All right, and the seeds in there are inside this bigger seed, the pod. I guess the cacao pod is the right way of calling it. And the seeds are inside it. And those seeds are actually covered with a little bit of fruit. If you peel that fruit and eat it, oh, it's really good. It's actually kind of sweet and sour, kind of like a lychee with a little bit of a sour twist. All right, but the nut inside is actually what is dried and crushed and fermented. All right, and once they're basically once you're dried and crushed, you can extract the cacao liquor out of it. But the seeds, the crushed seeds, if you just crush the seeds, those are cocoa nibs. All right. All right. And that's basically what you sell is really the concentrated cocoa nibs. It's the seeds, it's the nibs that contain the polyphenols within dark chocolate. It's all dark chocolate. There's no confection yet. All right. Confection is what they do when they take those roasted fermented seeds, dried seeds, and then they actually start to add things to it. All right. They add emulsifiers and add sugar and add milk and all that other kind of stuff to it. Butter. Nope. Actually get the nibs. You're getting the pure cocoa nibs, or what you get from the cacao pod, which actually are the seeds that are dried and crushed and fermented, right? And these are packed with the bioactive. We even know what the names are. They belong to the group of bioactives called proanthocyanidins. Proanthocyanidins. All right, leave the tongue twisters to me because I got to deal with it all the time. So I'm used to talking about them. All right, but guess what? Proanthocyanidins lower inflammation. Exactly what you want, right? That's why I'm talking about cocoa nibs. All right, and the cacao and cocoa nibs also help your body repair DNA. So basically, if their DNA is damaged, mutation, right? We talked about earlier. Guess what? Cocoa nibs contain the bioactive that helps your DNA fix itself before it becomes a problem. All right. So really great for lowering the risk of cancer. Cocoa nibs are the precursor for chocolate making. All right. But because it's before you add sugar, you add emulsifiers or other additives to make a chocolate bar, you got the pure, real deal with just cocoa nibs. Now, what are some good ways to eat cocoa nibs? All right. You can sprinkle them on whole yogurt. All right. And by the way, that means that you can sprinkle some crushed almonds, some cut up dried fruit. Now sprinkle some cocoa nibs on a yogurt. Does that sound good to you? Like that to me is a winning breakfast, a cancer fighting winning breakfast. That's, got high dairy fibers, got the polyphenols, lots of good stuff. I think that that's actually really useful to know that all these things can actually be used together. Same thing, cocoa nibs, you can actually add some to oatmeal. All right. Another way of lighting up your oatmeal. And by the way, if you're a baker, if you bake things for yourself or the family or your friends, try adding some cocoa nibs to your muffins. All right. Adds a little crunch, gets a little bit of that kind of chocolatey flavor without it being overwhelming. It's not a chocolate chip. All right. It's a cocoa nib, roasted, crushed, fermented seed of the cacao tree, pod. All right. And by the way, in addition to adding things into a muffin or a yogurt, guess what else you can do? You can add cocoa nibs to your trail mix. You're going to take your walnuts and you're going to actually take your dried fruit. So you can take a snack, throw some cocoa nibs in it as well. All right. Now you got yourself a cancer-fighting anti-inflammatory snack. What's not to like about that? All right.
Hey there, it's Dr. Lee. I share a lot in my YouTube videos, but sometimes we need a deeper, more personal dive into how food can be used as medicine. And that's why I created my Eat to Beat Disease course. You'll have me as your teacher and guide to unlock the full potential of food that can be used to boost your health. My course is packed with the latest science and practical strategies. It's all designed to be easily followed and something you can start using right away. So whether you want to prevent a disease or fight a disease or just optimize your health for longevity, my course has got you covered. So if you're ready to make a positive change, click on the link below or scan the QR code on the screen right now. I can't wait to see how you're going to get started to improve your health using food. Now, back to the video.
Next food, you ready? Let's talk about it. Tinned fish. Tinned seafood is really what I mean to say. And I know what you're thinking. Tinned fish, Dr. Lee? You mean like cat food? The stuff that you buy in the middle aisle of the grocery store and you open it up and it smells like cat food, like moist cat food? Yeah, you know what? That's actually an unfortunate prejudice that even I had for years. I'm like, once I realized what cat food smells like is just like canned tuna, which is what it is. All right. I kind of shied away from it, but I've changed my mind completely. Turns out that there's a delicacy that are what are tinned seafood. So it could be fish, it could be mussels, clams, squid, all kinds of different things, octopus you put in there. And that's a delicacy called conservus. All right. And that's a delicacy Spain, a delicacy in the south of France, in Portugal and Greece. You'll find stores that are having tinned sardines or tinned mackerels or anchovies or tinned clam, octopus. And basically what you need to know about this is that these conservatives, which are coming out of the Mediterranean, right? So this is a healthy Mediterranean tradition. The seafood is quickly cooked, usually steamed. Then they actually pack them in extra virgin olive oil with a lot of herbs or spices in order to be able to really marinate the tinned seafood. Then they put it in a tin and they seal it, okay? And basically it's marinating in this oil, healthy oil. And then they sell them, and they can sit in the aisles of the middle aisle of the grocery store. Or if you go to a specialty store that sells, imported goods from Europe, you'll usually find these conservatives. So if you're actually in a store and you're trying to figure it out, major grocery store, just ask for where the canned fish is. But when you're there, ignore the tuna, all right? That's not the interesting stuff. The interesting stuff, if you look around the edges, you'll find they've got the tinned anchovies or tinned mackerel. That's what you want to be looking at. I usually have a stack of these tins in my pantry. They can last for a long time, like definitely more than a year, maybe up to even 5 years. And what's great about them is tinned fish, great for a snack. You just open it up, just fork it out and eat it. A little bit of sourdough bread, fantastic, right? So here's like a quick lunch I could do. Toast some sourdough bread, spread some avocado on it, open up a tin of seafood. It's marinated with piquillo peppers or something like that, an extra virgin olive oil. Just those two things. I'm done with lunch, and it's good, and it's healthy, and it's probiotic. It feeds my gut bacteria, lowers my inflammation, all right? So a quick lunch like that, or you can actually make a full meal out of it. And I'll tell you, if I sometimes run out of time to cook a more elaborate meal, or I forgot, I'm so busy, like, oh man, forgot to plan dinner tonight. And I don't really want to go out to get dinner because usually takeout isn't that healthy for you. Guess what? I'll go in my pantry, I'll look for the conservatives, the tinned seafood right away. I'll pick out one that I want to eat. What's, mackerel or clam or squid or whatever. All right. I'll pop it out. I'll look for some whole grain pasta. Look for some a tube of tomato paste or anchovy paste or garlic paste, a little extra virgin olive oil. And I'll take a pan, put a little extra virgin olive oil in it, chop up some garlic, maybe add some tomato paste or anchovy paste, stir it up. Now you get this oil that's incredibly fragrant. And then cook the pasta. Pasta's done, al dente, please. I'll drain that. I'll stick it right in there. I'll stir the pasta so it's covered with the sauce, all the good stuff, right? Extra virgin olive oil and anchovy paste and tomato paste. It's very umami, all right? And then I'll take that tin seafood, cut it up, okay? So they're sort of small forkful pieces. Throw it right in there, mix them all together, and bam, I've got a dinner, all right? I've got an omega-3 from the seafood, rich dinner that fights inflammation, lowers the risk of cancer, all right? Want to really pop it up a little bit, add some capers. Capers are salted, so you want to make sure you don't give yourself high blood pressure. Rinse off any salt if it's packed in salt or salt and vinegar. Rinse it off really well. Put it in a wooden chopping block board. Chop, 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 chop. I would just chop up coarsely the capers. Throw them right in there. Or you could just throw the washed capers right into the dish. Squeeze some lemon. All right, little fresh cracked pepper. You got yourself a pretty nice meal. I could knock one of those. I could knock that out in less than 15 minutes. Come over to my house if you want to eat that. All right. So that's a great way. Cancer fighting, omega-3s, a way of it's also inexpensive. All right. Now you can buy expensive conservatives for sure, but what I'm trying to tell you is that tinned seafood, you can keep a stack of that in your pantry and not have to go out. What you make at home is going to be better than the food you get into a restaurant, and it'll lower inflammation. And by the way, omega-3s have been shown, and I write about this in my book, Eat to Beat Your Diet. Eating omega-3s from seafood, like conservatives, like tinned fish, can also help to ramp up your metabolism. It helps you burn away harmful extra body fat. And when you do that, by the way, you're lowering inflammation as well. Okay, all these great things. You can kind of see Cancer is a complicated disease. It's a feared disease. I'm trying to demystify it a little bit for you and then show you how you can actually ramp up your body's own health defense systems in order to be able to counter cancer, push back against it, make it less likely that the cancer will become dangerous for you. And omega-3s from conservatives are also anti-angiogenic. They starve cancer by cutting off the blood supply. All right. So basically, if you look at the research out there, there's actually research studies that have looked at consuming omega-3s, whether it's by supplement or seafood, been shown to reduce the risk of liver cancer in people, breast cancer in women, prostate cancer in men, and brain tumors as well. All right. So this has actually been shown not just in the lab, but also in studying the outcomes of people who are actually eating these foods. All right. So what am I actually trying to tell you? Tinned seafood, great to store, inexpensive meal, ingredient for meal, easy to whip together for something convenient and something really, really healthy. I enjoy it. Tastes really great. All right. Don't forget that little squeeze of lemon at the end. It actually takes, because it's seafood, it really kind of helps. A little bit of acid will help pop the flavor. Make sure you don't eat too much of it. All right. Do not overeat your carbs when it comes to pasta. All right. And by the way, I did mention extra virgin olive oil. All right. Extra virgin olive oil has got healthy fats, monounsaturated fatty acids, but it's also got bioactives. You know how extra virgin olive oil has a little peppery flavor, right? Spicy flavor. That spicy flavor is due to the polyphenols. We know what they're called: hydroxytyrosol, oleocanthal. All right. And guess what? Those are also anti-inflammatory and anti-angiogenic, and they also boost your metabolism. All right. So I'm just telling you, I'm taking you around the block a little bit to show you, we started with the kind of a scary topic of cancer, trying to demystify it for you to show how the body normally deals with it. And now we're diving into the foods that actually can lower your risk and taste great all at the same time. All right. Promise you one more food. You know what that's going to be? Apples. You've heard of that phrase, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Some truth to this, all right? So what's good about an apple? An apple, you can buy apples all year round, but fall is when you get the most varieties of apples. And apples are a great source of dietary fiber. Dietary fiber, good for your gut microbiome, right? When your gut bacteria happy, remember we talked about this, what happens? Your inflammation goes down. That fights cancer risk, all right? So it lowers risk of cancer by lowering inflammation. But apples have something else in their flesh. And in their flesh, they have something called quercetin, Quercetin. I know you can buy quercetin as a supplement, and people always ask me, Dr. Lee, should I just take the quercetin supplement? What do you think about that? What I say is supplements are for topping off. Why don't you just eat the whole food? I'm a big believer in the whole food. Eat the whole apple, and then you'll get the quercetin, and you'll get the dietary fiber, which you're getting from your little supplement pill, all right? And other polyphenols are present in the whole apple. But quercetin's anti-angiogenic, cuts off the blood supply to tumor, cancer starving, all right? That's kind of what you want to do, all right? And quercetin has also been able to protect cells against oxidative stress. Remember I told you stress actually can cause DNA mutations. Quercetin can actually protect against that. So it protects your DNA. Remember, it's that copy paste. It's a mistake that's made that leads to the microscopic cancer. Quercetin protects against that. All right. So again, it's not one apple a day is correlated to one notch of decreased cancer risk. It's that if you incorporate apples, and these are the foods that we've been talking about, all right, into your lives, you're actually just adding more and more stuff. You are actually tipping your own odds against cancer in favor of actually staying as healthy as possible. And if you have cancer, it helps to tip your odds that you're going to win. Okay, win the battle. All right. Now there are clinical studies that have been done looking at apple consumption, because what I always try to say is, does it work in people? Prove to me that there's evidence that it works in people. So there's researchers from Italy at the University of Perugia looked at 48 clinical studies, right? That's a lot of studies that all looked at eating apple and cancer risk. And here's what they found. They found that eating apples was associated with a 25% lowered risk of developing lung cancer and a 34% lowered risk of developing colon cancer, colorectal cancer, and a 21% reduced risk of breast cancer. All right. That's 1 out of 5. Cross out that 1 out of the 5. All right. So that's pretty amazing, right? Like it actually works in the clinical setting, in the real world setting. So what are some pro tips I can give you about apple eating? Well, if you're going to eat the apple, you're going to get the most fiber by eating the skin along with the flesh, right? Right. So you take the apple home, wash it off really well, eat it. A lot of dietary fiber and the polyphenols are found in the skin of these fruits. Now, if you're going to eat the skin of an apple, for sure, this is where it pays off to buy organic, because studies have shown that if you actually looked at the commercial pesticide sprays, it's impossible to get rid of all of it. Some of the pesticides penetrate up to 20% into the skin of the apple. You're stuck, all right? You get organic, you're actually not going to get the chemicals soaking into that. Now, how do I like to eat apples? All right. I like it a lot of different ways. I like them plain, just eat an apple. By the way, it's good for your gums, good for your teeth. You're chewing it, an apple. If I want to get a little bit more, I like to work with the food a little bit. So if you cut up your apple, all right, consider keeping the peel on if you're getting organic, all right. Chop them up with the skin. Now you can sprinkle them onto oatmeal. You want to kind of make it a little bit nicer, and the chunks of the apple a little softer. After you cut them up into small cubes, throw them into a pan. All right. You can even use a little touch of extra virgin olive oil. All right. Add some nutmeg, add some cinnamon to it. Now you've actually lit it up. Now pour that on top of your yogurt, or pour that on top of your oatmeal. And you can make a batch of this, by the way, of kind of an apple compote with some herbs and spices. You can make that the night before, the day before. Keep it in a jar in your fridge and just spoon it off right on top of that yogurt or oatmeal. All right. Now, I mentioned cinnamon. Cinnamon has metabolism activating benefits as well. Great flavor combination, like that spice. Great combination with apples. All right. So all this is all meant to show you that you can actually eat foods to actually fight cancer, lower your risk. It's supported by clinical evidence, human evidence. And you can actually do that with foods that actually taste great, that I hope I showed you I can actually incorporate them into my life in super easy ways, along with a few purchasing tips to make it an everyday thing, right? Everyone should be fighting cancer every single day. Start before you have cancer. That's a key way. Prevention is the best form of intervention. All right. Hope you learned something new. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video. Dr. Lee out.
Hi there. If you enjoyed watching this video, I know you'll love the next one. Stay here and check it out, and I'll see you there.